Welcome to A Christmas Tale of Wool and Straw. Oh, where are those sheep? Where are those bossy sheep? When it comes to Christmas, everyone has stories. Sure, there was 'Twas the Night Before Christmas, and Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, and Frosty the Snowman, and don't forget the Grinch, and of course, A Christmas Carol. And we have our own stories too, right? Yeah, like remember the great snowstorm of '69? Oh, right. Yeah, you're too little. Okay. Or that year the Christmas turkey exploded. Yeah. Or when we had that 12-foot Christmas tree that Dad was cutting down and brought in, and when we were decorating, we found a family of squirrels living in it. Yeah, that was an adventure. Depends on how you look at it, I suppose. Like, I guess those squirrels didn't think it was the best Christmas ever. Yeah, well, I think that story that we tell in church is the very first Christmas is the most special Christmas story of all. The way the Bible tells about the birth of Jesus, baby Jesus, is pretty amazing and wonderful. But sometimes I wonder what it might have been like to really be there in the stable in Bethlehem, to see what was going on there. Because maybe, just maybe, there was other stuff happening too. There's another way of seeing things. A long time ago, there was a tiny little town called Bethlehem. It was kind of in the middle of nowhere, in a country called Judea. A not very popular place and way gone in the back end of an empire controlled by powerful corporations and mighty conglomerates who are only interested in what they could get out of you, like oil or cheap manufacturing or... Oh, sorry. That's more of a horror story. Okay, here we are. In the old days, Bethlehem was so small.
How small was it?
Oh, it was so small it only had one stable. Yeah. Well, maybe stable isn't the right word for it. There were no horses in the stable at all. Oh, sorry. Of course, and you were lucky to even find a donkey in the stable. Oh, sorry, donkey. Of course, that wasn't what the stable was for, mind you. The stable was full of all kinds of animals. Like there was cows. Yeah, and chickens. Good. Dogs. And cats.
Yeah.
Oh, there's our cat. Mice. Our little mice scurried away. Way over there. Even a rabbit or two.
What's up, Doc?
Yeah. Or a wise old donkey who rarely ever left his stall. Oh, and sheep. Yep. Yeah, the sheep pretty much ran the show in those days. Oh, they weren't really mean or bossy or anything like that. Mind you, there was one or two that would mix it up with it if you got in their way. Yeah. No, it wasn't that. It was just that, well, there were the sheep of the hills. Yeah, and the sheep of the valley. And they never did see eye to eye. No one ever just fine. They shared their stalls and their straw, and whenever they went in or out of the stable, they would politely let their friends go first.
You go first. No, you. No, you.
Not the sheep, though. Sometimes they wouldn't even use the same door. And whoever happened to come in first would take the best stalls and best straw and just sit there and stare at the others, chewing their straw, chewing and staring, staring and chewing. Now, you can imagine the other animals were not too fond of this arrangement. Well, one of the dogs said,
I wish they were more friendly.
yeah, and then one of the chickens said,
Why can't they get along like we do?
yeah. Well, one of the pigs said,
I wish they would share their food.
yeah, and then the cows said together, move them somewhere else.
Move them somewhere else.
They did. Well, the donkey then said,
Something's coming.
Some of the animals had their own ideas about what to do about the sheep. Well, both the dogs said,
Build them their own stable.
yep. Then the chicken said again,
Make them take turns.
Chicken secretly wanted her own pecking order. Yeah. Well, then a pig said again,
Make them share their food.
yeah. Well, the cows then said, move us somewhere else.
Move us somewhere else.
They sincerely hoped they were heard. Then the donkey said again.
Something's coming.
Yep, the sheep were not so sure though. Yeah, the sheep of the hills said, we want to stay in this.
We want to stay in the stable. It's ours.
Woo. Then the sheep of the valley replied, no, it's ours.
No, it's ours. We can take turns as long as we go first.
Yeah. Well, it might be an idea. Sheep of the hills then said,
No, we're first. And
don't even think about it.
don't even think about sharing our food.
Yep, they did. They said that. You bet. Then the sheep of the valley replied, you should move on.
You should move on.
That wouldn't be so.
That wouldn't be so bad.
Yep. The donkey again said,
Something's coming.
oh, everyone turned to look at the donkey, and the sheep all together said,
What?
they did. Yeah, this really surprised them. Oh, it really surprised them. Oh, because it was the first time they had ever done anything together. Well, the donkey said again.
Something's coming.
Well, now the other
Animals were sick and tired of the sheep of the hills, sheep of the valley,
and they weren't
gonna take it anymore. Of the sheep of the hills, sheep of the valleys,
It's just about time we
show them the door.
But wait,
Said the donkey, there's a better way for the sheep of the hills, sheep of the valley.
God can show them how you
Wait and see. And the sheep of the hills, sheep of the valleys,
will see one happy
flock of sheep.
Yeah. Well, now the donkey, whose name was Ezekiel, was an old donkey who traveled to many places, and all the other animals knew he was wise. Yeah. If anyone could do something about the sheep of the hills and the sheep of the valley, it was Ezekiel. Well, one of the cows said,
What do you mean, Ezekiel? I've heard a voice like an angel speaking far away. Something special is coming. We must be ready.
well, one of the cats then said,
I don't know, even me, big ears. I don't think you heard anything at all.
One of the rabbits then said, this cute little rabbit said,
That's what.
it did. Yeah. Well, it's
Silly rabbit, tricks are for kids.
snorting coming from the sheep. Whoa! They weren't sure, but they thought some work was coming their way. But Ezekiel had an idea.
I will be going on a trip. While I'm gone, I challenge the sheep of the hills to gather their wool and the sheep of the valley to gather their straw, each bringing as much as they can back to the stable. On the evening of my return, when we see each other,
Whichever
whichever of us fills the most space in the stable will be the winner and the boss of the stable.
Ooh, well, the sheep of the hills were pretty excited. Their wool was the finest and fluffiest anywhere. They said,
No problem!
and the sheep of the valley knew exactly where the best straw was stored. They said, and the sheep of the hills and the sheep of the valley looked at each other and said,
Bring it on, baby!
Woo! Once again, the sheep surprised themselves by answering together. Well, one of the cows said,
What will you bring, Ezekiel? What will you bring, Ezekiel? We shall see.
oh, who was secretly concerned that the sheep of the hill might make a move on her hay. Then the donkey said,
We shall see.
and with that, Ezekiel left the stable and walked on down the road. Now, it wasn't long before things started to get a little crowded in the stable. There was straw and wool everywhere. Oh, there's not straw wool everywhere. You know, I bet that if you were to look back there, I bet you'd find the boxes of wool and straw to bring here in the stable. Go ahead. Waiting for waiting. Ah, here comes wool and straw. Good job. Oh, you found lots. Good work. Good. Oh, thank you, Reed. Good job. Well, that's better. Now, it wasn't long before things started to get a little crowded in the stable. There was straw and wool everywhere, and there wasn't much room for the animals. And the sheep of the hills and the sheep of the valley still didn't get along. And Ezekiel was nowhere to be seen. Finally, it was the day that Ezekiel was to return, and the sheep of the hills and the sheep of the valley stayed out as late as they could, looking for every last bit of straw. Well, I guess they found it after all. It was starting to get quite dark. And when they headed back to the stable, they were almost there when they heard a noise. It was quiet and gentle at first, but soon it was all they could hear. And they stopped and looked in amazement. There was angels in the sky. The sheep of the hills hurried down, and the sheep of the valley ran quickly up. And as soon as they came to the stable, they were surprised to find Ezekiel standing at the door with the other animals. Well, all the sheep asked,
What's happening?
What? They did ask, what's happening? Well, one of the rabbits said,
Ezekiel is right. Something special is happening. It's happening right here. A baby's being born in our stable.
oh! Sheep of the hills said,
Big deal.
yeah. The sheep of the valley said,
What?
This is Mary and Joseph and the baby Jesus. Jesus is a little big for a baby, but after all, Jesus comes into our hearts at Christmas, whoever we are. And when the sheep and the other animals found Ezekiel in the stable, no one noticed the wool piled high towards the roof, or the bales of hay stacked against the wall. All eyes were fixed on the baby, sleeping quietly in his mother's arms. Look what Ezekiel brought. And they all watched as the mother gently put him down in the rough wooden manger. And the baby stretched and yawned and began to cry. And his crying filled the whole stable. Yeah. The sheep of the hills looked at the sheep of the valley.
I think he's uncomfortable,
Said the sheep of the hills. The sheep of the valley replied with, the wood is too hard.
The wood is too hard.
Oh, yes, well, the wood is too hard. Well, one of the sheep took some wool, and another brought some straw, and they put them together in the manger under the baby. And the baby smiled and stopped crying as his mother rocked the manger gently back and forth. Like the sheep of the hills and the sheep of the valley, we sometimes forget what's really important. And instead, we let little things come between us and others, between us and the rest of the world. Christmas reminds us that God's love for all came to us as a baby born in a stable.